Brashear High School buses rolled into the parking lot on Wednesday, August 17th. The day started with an early morning assembly along with a new school year. Brashear High introduced 5 new faces to the staff. Ms. Shipman introduced her new principal, Mr. Doolin, who introduced the new band teacher, Mr. Schultz, the new English teacher, Mrs. McGinnis, the new Spanish teacher, Mrs. Lambert, and the 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Nelson. After the assembly, students dismissed to their classrooms to select their new class officers.
The Brashear Marching Band has been practicing extensively by starting off the year's practice with a week-long band camp over the summer. The new band teacher, Mr. Schultz, is excited about his 25 band members with their first parade on October 8th at the Truman Homecoming Parade. Mr. Schultz and the band members have been preparing for the event. The Brashear Color Guard has also been practicing to quickly master the routine for the year. There is a total of 10 Color Guard members along with their Color Guard coach, Alicia Stewart. Tuesday night, the Brashear Lady Tigers faced the Scotland County Tigers. In the first inning, Scotland County took a quick 2-0 lead. Brashear turned a lead walk by Meredith Thomas and a pair of hits by Shelby Salter and Sierra Hines, tying the game 2-2 after the first inning. Sierra Hines fanned 3 straight Scotland County batters in the top of the second. Shelby Salter also scored the final run for Brashear with a home run. Meredith Thomas and Katie Smith also had hits. The game ended with Scotland County taking the win with 8 runs, while Brashear was able to score 3. The Lady Tigers also went face-to-face in the JV game with an ending tie of 5-5.
Every fall, our high school has an election for student council's president and vice president. This year, our new president, Shandy Marge, and new vice president, Katie Smith, both won unopposed. Congratulations to Shandy and Katie.
On Friday, August 26th, the Brashear baseball and softball teams went to Lincoln County to face the Mustangs. In the softball game, both teams struggled to get any runs. Lincoln County then started off the game scoring 2 in the third and 2 in the fifth, leading the game 4-0. In the sixth, Brashear managed to tie the game at 4-4, then added 3 more in the seventh to win the game 7-4. Meredith Thomas had 2 hits, with Shelby Salter, Katie Watson, and Katie Smith all having 1 hit. Sierra Hines struck out 9 for the win. The Brashear baseball boys managed to score 1 run in the first. Mustangs responded and scored 1, tying the game at 1-1. Mustangs then scored 3 more in the third. Brashear tied the game at 4-4 in the top of the fifth. Lincoln County scored 2 in the fifth and 4 in the sixth, with Brashear taking the loss 10-4. Nick Bradshaw and Hayden Hausman had 3 hits. Joe Clarkson, Curtis Blakely, Gabe Thomas, and Sam Smith and Chance Hill all had 1 hit.
Brashear and Nobbinger squared off Saturday morning to start their play in the Atlanta tournament. The Lady Tigers spotted Nobbinger a run in the bottom of the first, and Nobbinger never relinquished the lead. The Lady Wildcats added single runs in the third, fourth, and fifth. Brashear did their only scoring in the fourth as Sierra Hines hit a leadoff triple, then Shelby Salter smacked an inside-the-park home run. Nobbinger picked up the win 4-2. Sierra Hines had 2 hits, and Shelby Salter had a home run for Brashear. In the second game, Brashear took on La Plata. Lady Bulldogs scored 3 runs in the first and another pair in the second to lead Brashear 5-0 after 2 innings. La Plata added another 4 in the fourth. Brashear finally got on the scoreboard in the fifth as Alexa Acton and Meredith Thomas got on base and Allie Garrett and Sarah Hines drove them home. The final score was La Plata 9, Brashear 2. Meredith Thomas, Allie Garrett, Sierra Hines, Katie Smith, and Alexa Acton all had hits for Brashear. Kristen Love took the loss on the mound. Brashear faced Atlanta next for the right to play in the third place game. The Lady Tigers scored 2 in the first and 2 in the second, with Atlanta answering with 3 in the second. Brashear blew the game open with a 13-run fourth inning to claim a 17-4 victory and advance to the third-place game and a rematch with Novinger. Alexa Acton picked up the win for Brashear, with Reed taking the loss for Atlanta. Brashear was ready to avenge their earlier loss to Novinger and quickly went to work, scoring 6 runs in the first inning and 3 more in the second. Meanwhile, Novinger was held to a run in the third and 2 more in the fourth as Brashear rolled to a 15-3 win to claim the third-place trophy. Meredith Thomas, Sierra Hines, and Shelby Salter had 2 hits each for Brashear, with Katie Watson, Allie Garrett, and Ashley Moncrief also having hits. Sarah Hines picked up the win for Brashear, throwing a 2-hitter while allowing no walks.
This year at Brashear, you may have noticed some new electronics around. Brashear received the 2011 EMIS grant. This grant supported the school with money to future better the teachers and students here at Brashear. The school received 38 new laptops, 4 new smart boards, and 1 new desk computer, along with technology training for teachers for up to 2 years after school. Thus far, Brashear has used around $60,000 in hopes of bettering the school. Also, new things you may have noticed around the school are in the shop room. The school purchased new equipment for the shop students here at Brashear. New tools include wood burners, scroll saws, and a new lathe.
You may have noticed another new addition to the Brashear baseball and softball field. A new flagpole has been erected behind home plate in memory of Robert Elsie, a well-known member of the Brashear community. The flagpole was donated by the BBSA.
On Thursday night, Brashear played Macon County. The softball game between Brashear and Macon County didn't last long, as Brashear pushed across 11 runs in the first, 1 in the second, and 3 in the third to claim a 15-0 3-inning victory. Merritt Thomas, Nikki Moncrief, Shelby Salter, and Ashley Moncrief had hits for Brashear. Sierra Hines had a perfect 3-inning game on the mound. The baseball game was up for grabs in the early innings. Macon County scored 5 times in the top of the first, with Brashear answering with 4 runs in the bottom of the inning. Macon County led 6-5 after 2 innings and were up 8-5 in the third when Brashear's Nick Bradshaw hit a grand slam to put Brashear ahead 9-8. Macon tied the game 9-9 in the fourth, but a 6-run fifth put Brashear ahead for a 15-10 win. Bradshaw had a home run for Brashear. Hayden Hasman had a triple and a single. Gabe Thomas had 2 hits, and Curtis Blakely and Nick Gordon also had hits. Nick Thomas and Hayden Hausman pitched for Brashear.
Friday night at Brashear's home game, LaPlata scored a run in the first and 2 in the second before opening up with a lead with a 4-run fourth. Yet the Tigers struggled at the plate as LaPlata went on to end the game early with a 10-0 win in 5 innings. Nick Bradshaw had Brashear's lone hit with a double in the first inning. Gabe Thomas went the distance for Brashear, giving up 9 hits, while
Brashear Lady Tigers faced South Shelby in the first round. The game was scoreless until the third inning when Brashear's Meredith Thomas and Shelby Salter singled and scored. Brashear added another run in the fourth when first baseman Kristen Love blasted a solo homer over the right field fence. South Shelby scored their only run in the fifth as Brashear advanced with a 3-1 win. For Brashear, Kristen Love homered, Shelby Salter had 2 hits, and Meredith Thomas, Sierra Hines, and Ashley Watson had hits. Sierra Hines picked up the win for Brashear.
Next up for Brashear was the host Lady Eagles from Knox County. Knox County struck early with a run in the first, adding single runs in the third and fifth, before sealing the 6-1 win with a run in the seventh. Brashear got on the scoreboard in the fourth as Meredith Thomas led off with a triple, then Sierra Hines singled her home. Shelby Salter singled to move Hines into scoring position, but a pair of strikeouts ended Brashear's rally. Thomas, Hines, and Salter had hits for Brashear. Sierra Hines took the loss for Brashear, striking out 9 and giving up 2 earned runs.
Brashear faced Kirksville JV in the third place game. Kirksville got on the scoreboard with a run in the first, but Brashear answered with a pair of runs in the third. Brashear picked up another run in the sixth, but Kirksville had singles in the third, fourth, fifth, plus a 3-run sixth to win the game with a score of 7-3. Shelby Salter had 2 hits for Brashear, with Meredith Thomas and Alexa Acton also having hits. Kristen Love took the loss for Brashear, striking out 3.
Tuesday night, Brashear faced Novinger for a doubleheader. In the girls' game, the Lady Wildcats jumped on a quick 1-0 lead, but the lead didn't last long as Brashear's leadoff hitter, Meredith Thomas, stroked the first pitch into the right field corner for an inside-the-park homer, tying the game at 1-1. Brashear was far from done as they battled around in the first, taking a 10-1 lead. Brashear added 3 more in the second and 3 more in the third to end the game early, 16-1. Sierra Hines had 3 hits for Brashear, Meredith Thomas had 2 hits, including a home run, and Ashley Moncrief, Shelby Salter, Katie Smith, and Katie Watson also had hits. Sierra Hines picked up the win for Brashear, throwing a 1-hitter, striking out 5.
Novinger also struck early in the baseball game, taking a 5-1 lead after 1 inning of play. Novinger added single runs in the second and third innings before exploding for 7 runs in the fifth. Brashear's first run came in the first as Hayden Hausman doubled and Gabe Thomas drove him in. The Tigers scored again in the third as Hausman hit a solo homer. Brashear's final run came in the fourth as Blake Flum doubled and Nick Bradshaw drove him in. Brashear came up short by a score of 14-3. For Brashear, Hayden Hausman had a homer and a double. Blake Flum doubled and Nick Bradshaw and Curtis Blakely singled. Hayden Hausman got the start for Brashear with Gabe Thomas pitching in relief.
Friday, Brashear students received their new Renaissance cards for the year and began walking to the Keller building. Students were then served biscuits and gravy along with milk and juice. This year we have 53 students in Renaissance.
On Friday, September 9th, the kindergarten and first grade had a Grandparents' Day, where their grandparents came and ate lunch with them and took a tour of the school. Last Thursday, Brashear visited camp for a softball doubleheader. Brashear got on the scoreboard in the top of the first inning as leadoff hitter Meredith Thomas doubled and was driven in by Sierra Hines. In the second inning, Brashear extended their lead as Nikki Moncrief was hit by a pitch. Katie Watson and Kristen Love drew walks, and Meredith Thomas, Shelby Salter, and Sierra Hines all singled, producing 5 runs to put Brashear 6-0. Canton scored their lone run in the fourth as Brashear cruised to an 8-1 win. Katie Watson, Sierra Hines, and Meredith Thomas each had 2 hits for Brashear, with Shelby Salter, Alexa Acton, Katie Smith, and Kristen Love also having hits. Sierra Hines picked up the win for Brashear, tossing a 3-hitter while striking out 5. Brashear also took JV game by a score of 8-7.
The softball game between La Plata and Brashear was a much-anticipated matchup with implications for the Tri-County Conference Championship. Both teams were undefeated in conference play. It looked like La Plata might score in the first as leadoff hitter Mallory Idle singled, but was ultimately stranded at third. Brashear threatened in second as Sierra Hines had a leadoff single, but she too ended up stranded at third. La Plata finally got on the board in the top of the fourth on a pair of hits, an error, and a sacrifice to take a lead 3-0. Brashear got 2 runs in the bottom of the sixth and the tying run in the bottom of the seventh, but left the bases loaded without scoring the winning run. Both teams went in order in the eighth, but La Plata's Elizabeth James led off the ninth with a triple and scored on an error to give La Plata a 4-3 lead. Meredith Thomas led off the Brashear half of the ninth with a double and scored the tying run on a Sierra Hines 2-out single. Alexa Acton came to the plate next and hit a slow grounder to short. The throw to first came too late and in the dirt, allowing Alexa to reach safely, while Sierra Hines sprinted home with the winning run. The final score in 9 innings was 5-4. Sierra Hines had 4 hits for Bashir, Meredith Thomas had 3, Katie Smith had 2, and Alexa Acton, Nikki Moncrief, and Kristen Love also had hits. In the baseball game between Brashear and La Plata scored 7 runs in the top of the first, 2 in the second, 6 in the third, 3 in the fourth, and another in the fifth to claim a 19-2 win. Hayden Hasman scored both runs for Brashear. Hasman singled and scored in the first, then hit a solo home run in the third for Brashear's only other run. Hasman had Brashear's only 2 hits.
On Tuesday, September 13th, Brashear traveled to face Atlanta for the boys and girls games. In the softball game, Brashear scored 4 runs in the first inning, 3 in the second, and 1 in the third. 2 Lady Tigers homered a 6-run in the fourth inning. Kristen Love hit a 3-run homer, then Shelby Salter followed with a 2-run homer, 3 batters later. Atlanta's lone run came in the first as Brashear won 16-1 in 5 innings. Meredith Thomas, Katie Watson, and Kristen Love all had hits for Brashear. Kristen Love picked up the win, giving up only 2 hits and striking out 8.
Brashear got on the scoreboard with a pair of runs at the top of the first, but Atlanta answered with 6 runs at the bottom of the inning. Brashear held Atlanta scoreless in the second and gave up single runs in the third and fourth, but Atlanta pushed across 6 runs in the fifth to end the game early by a score of 14-4. Hayden Hausman, Gabe Thomas, Blake Slum, Curtis Blakely, Joe Clarkson, and Nick Thomas had hits for Brashear. Gabe Thomas had got the start for Brashear, with Nick Thomas pitching in relief. Congratulations to Allie Garrett for making All District Choir. Over 120 auditioned and she was one of the 80 to be selected.
On Tuesday, the Brashear students and faculty all had their pictures taken. The seniors, along with their class sponsors, had the special treatment as they were dressed up in suits and dresses for their last school picture as a class.
Last Thursday and Friday, Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 lived in the culture of the Mexicans by celebrating the Mexican Independence Day. The classes brought snacks and drinks like chips and salsa and sodas and viewed pictures of the Mexican ruins.
Baseball softball teams went to Green City. In Friday night's softball game, Brashear got on the scoreboard with a pair of runs in the first and held the early 2-0 lead through the first 3 innings. In the top of the fourth, Brashear pushed across 4 runs, then added 7 more in the fifth to end the game 13-1 by mercy rule. For Brashear, Sierra Hines had a double and a single, Meredith Thomas had a double, Kristen Love had 2 hits, and Ashley Moncrief, Alexa Acton, Nikki Moncrief, and Katie Watson also had hits. Sierra Hines picked up the win for Brashear, throwing a 3-hitter and striking out 6. In the baseball game, Green City took an early 2-0 lead. Brashear scored 5 runs in the top of the second to lead 5-2. But Green City tied the game at 5-5 in the bottom of the second. Brashear got another pair of runs in the fourth, but Green City scored 3 in the third, 4 in the fourth, and 5 in the fifth to win 17-7. Nick Thomas had a triple and a single for Brashear, with Nick Bradshaw and David Walker also having hits. Hayden Hausman took the loss for Brashear.
The Brashear Lady Tigers pounded out 12 hits on the way to a 16-6 win over the Lady Mustangs. Brashear got on the board with 3 runs in the top of the first. The Lady Tigers continued scoring with 5 in the second, 1 in the third, 2 in the fifth, 1 in the sixth, and 4 in the seventh, while holding Marion County to only 3 more runs. Kristen Love homered, tripled, and singled for Brashear. Katie Smith also had 3 hits, driving in 4 runs. Ashley Moncrief and Katie Watson had 2 hits each, and Shelby Salter tripled and Sierra Hines singled.
Tuesday, September 20th, Buckland traveled to Brashear to play both boys and girls games. In the softball game, Brashear wasted no time, scoring 5 runs in the first to put Buckland behind 5-0 after the first inning. After scoring a run in the second, Brashear scored 9 more runs in the third to end the game after 3 innings by a score of 15-0. Brashear senior pitcher Sierra Hines dominated from the circle, throwing a perfect game and striking 8 of the 9 batters she faced, in addition to driving the last 2 runs for Brashear with a third-inning double. Hines was 2 for 2 from the plate for Brashear, with Angela McKim, Shelby Salter, Kristen Love, and Katie Smith also having hit.
In the baseball game, Hayden Houseman got things started off for Brashear with a leadoff home run in the wild first inning, where 19 Brashear batters came to the plate. Houseman also hit a 3-run homer and made the last out of the first inning on a high fly ball to center. In the Brashear half of the second inning, Nick Thomas and Nick Bradshaw hit back-to-back homers, and Blake Flum almost made it back-to-back as he hit a ball over the left field fence that just curved outside of the left field foul pole. By the end of the third inning, Brashear had extended their lead to 21-0. Buckland traded at the top of the first as they loaded the bases with 2 outs, but Brashear's Nick Bradshaw pitched out of the jam, getting a strikeout to end the inning. Buckland again rallied in the top of the fifth, scoring 5 runs, but fell shortly by a final score of 21-5. Hayden Houseman had 2 homers and a double for Brashear. Nick Thomas had a homer and a double. Nick Bradshaw had a homer and a single. Gabe Thomas had 2 singles, and Blake Flum, Jeremy Barnes, and Sam Smith had hits. Nick Bradshaw picked up the win for Brashear, scattering 4 hits and striking out 9.
On September 19th, the junior high boys and girls junior high basketball team kicked off their practice. Coach Snyder is very determined with his time and believes whatever you put in, you will get back out. The first game is October 13th. Also this year, Brashear hired on a new coach, Mr. Tony Keene. He will be coaching the junior high boys, varsity boys, and hopefully leading Brashear to many victories. On Friday, September 23rd, Kirk's area SWAT team came to Brashear to eat lunch with the kindergartners. After lunch, they enjoyed pictures and questions.
Last week, we received word that for the 6th year in a row, our school district has been accredited with distinction by the state of Missouri. Congratulations and way to go, BHS, faculty, staff, and students. Last week, State Representative Zach Wyatt paid a visit to our school. Various faculty and students had the opportunity to talk with him as he observed classes.
Last week, the Brashear Lady Tigers honored their seniors, Sierra Hines, Kristen Love, Katie Smith, Ashley Watson, and Katie Watson, with a senior night ceremony. Each senior was presented with a small gift from the team.
The Brashear Lady Tigers faced Brashear on Friday, September 23rd. The game was a nail-biter in early going, with the score tied 0-0 after 3 innings. Brashear finally got on the scoreboard in the 4th with it, as Ashley Moncrief reached on air. Shelby Salter tripled and Sierra Hines signaled, put 2 runs on the boards. Brashear ended up taking the win with a 7-0 lead. The win gave Brashear a perfect 8-0 conference record and the conference championship.
In the boys' game, the Tigers got on the scoreboard first, as leadoff hitter Hayden Houseman was hit by a pitch and Nick Bradshaw drove him in. Revere quickly answered with a pair of runs in the bottom of the first and another in the second to lead 3-1. Brashear's Nick Thomas homered and the 2-run Tiger third, but Revere also scored 2 runs to maintain their lead. Brashear scored another pair of runs in the 4th, with Thomas again hitting a home run to tie the game at 5-5. Going into the bottom of the 5th, Revere looked like they might run away with the game as they scored 6 to take an 11-5 lead after 4 innings. But Brashear wasn't done yet. The Tigers scored 3 times in the 5th. Then Hayden Houseman and Nick Thomas both homered in a 6-run 6th inning to take the lead for a good 14-13 win. Nick Thomas had 3 home runs for Brashear. Hayden Hausman had a homer and a double. Nick Bradshaw and David Walker had 2 hits each, with Gabe Thomas, Joe Carson, Nick Gordon, and Curtis Blakely also having hits. Nick Thomas and Hayden Hausman pitched for Brashear. The Tigers finished with a conference record of 3-5.
The Brashear Lady Tigers opened play in the Schuyler County Softball Tournament, playing conference rival La Plata. The game was a pitcher's duel as Brashear's Sierra Hines and La Plata's McKay Bilt had opposing batters in check for 7 scoreless innings. The game went into an international tiebreaker in the 8th, and La Plata managed to push across a run to claim the win 1-0. Meredith Thomas, Alec Garrett, Katie Watson all had hits. Sierra Hines took the loss for Brashear, throwing a 1-hitter, striking out 13.
Next up for Brashear was Novinger. Both teams scored a run in the first, but Brashear added 2 in the second, 1 in the third, 2 in the fourth, 1 in the sixth, and 5 in the seventh to claim a 12-4 win. Sierra Hines, Katie Smith, Katie Watson, and Kristen Love had 2 hits each for Brashear, with Shelby Salter, Alexa Acton, and Allie Garrett also having hits. Kristen Love and Sierra Hines pitched for Brashear.
The Lady Tigers faced Milan Saturday and took an early lead with a run in the first, then blew the game open with a 9-run third inning. Milan's only run came in the 5th as Brashear coasted to an 11-1 win. Meredith Thomas had 3 hits for Brashear, including a third-inning grand slam. Katie Smith had 3 hits, and Shelby Salter, Katie Watson, and Alexa also had hits. Sierra Hines threw a 2-hitter, striking out 8 in the 5-inning win.
On Thursday, October 6th, Brashear School participated in one of the 2 mandatory fire drills. The state requires that we do 2 fire drills throughout the year, one in the fall and one in the spring. They also require we do tornado drills, intruder drills, bus evacuation drills, and earthquake drills.
This last Thursday, grades K through 6 had a bus evacuation, mandatory by the state, which K through 6 must do twice, once in the fall and once in the spring. Grades 7 through senior only have to do this once.
Congratulations to the following for making Tri-County All-Conference softball and baseball teams. Sierra Hines and Meredith Thomas for making softball first team, Shelby Salter and Kristen Love for making second team, also Hayden Hausman for making baseball first team, and Nick Thomas for making second team.
The Brashear Lady Tigers faced Green City for a doubleheader. Brashear exploded for 8 runs in the bottom of the first, on their way to a 5-inning, 16-4 victory. For Brashear, Shelby Salter had a home run among her 3 hits, with Meredith Thomas also having 3 hits. Sierra Hines, Katie Smith, and Alexa Acton each had 2 hits, and Katie Watson also. Brashear also took the JV game by a score of 6-3.
In the first round of districts, the Brashear Lady Tigers faced Novinger Wildcats, and they started off by leading a high seeing bunt in the top of the first, which was the only blemish on an otherwise perfect night by Brashear's Lady Tiger hurler Sierra Hines. Hines sent the next 15 batters down in order, striking out 12 in Brashear's 5-inning, 10-0 shutout of Novinger. The Lady Tigers batted around in the bottom of the first, but only scored 3 runs. Brashear scored another 2 runs in the second, but didn't get the timely big hit needed to score some more. One of the more interesting plays of the evening happened in the second, with bases loaded. A Brashear pop-out was ruled an infield fly, and Brashear's Meredith Thomas tagged from third and scored after a hard collision with the catcher. Novinger helped Brashear scoreless in the third and fourth, and it looked like the game might go the full 7 innings. Brashear got on the scoreboard again in the 5th as Ashley Moncrief singled, Meredith Thomas tripled, and Sierra Hines reached on a drive to the right field and scored on an error, which the score standing at 9-0 and 2 outs. Katie Smith drew a walk, and Alexa Acton scored her all the way from first base on a bomb over the center fielder's head to end the game after 5 innings, 10-0. For Brashear, Ashley Moncrief, Meredith Thomas, and Alexa Acton had 2 hits, with Shelby Salter, Sierra Hines, Kristen Love, and Katie Watson also having hits.
Brashear Marching Tiger Band had a busy week, kicking off their fall 2011 season with a performance in Kirksville at the Truman State Homecoming Parade on Saturday. On Tuesday, they attended Hannibal Band Day for the afternoon parade and the evening field show.
Congratulations to Meredith Thomas, Shelby Salter, Sierra Hines, and Kristen Love for being selected to the All-District softball team.
In the second round of districts, Brashear got on the scoreboard first with a run in the top of the third. Katie Watson roped a leadoff line drive past the second baseman for a double. Allie Garrett reached base when her fielder held Watson at second and threw late to first. Meredith Thomas laid down a sacrifice bunt, moving the runners to second and third. Then Shelby Salter hit a grounder through the infield to bring in Watson, giving Brashear a 1-0 lead. Scotland County evened the score at the bottom of the fourth as Bethany Rader led off with a double and was brought home on a Lawrence Smith single. Scotland County added 2 more in the
Last Saturday, the Brashear Marching Tigers Band had their last performance of the season as they marched at Mizzou Homecoming Parade. The Flag Girls had an exceptionally good day as they took third place in the flag competition.
Many school groups at Brashear have been conducting fundraisers this fall. The FBLA recently sold Krispy Kreme donuts, the juniors are selling magazines, and the cheerleaders and athletic department have also been active with Mr. Z sales. The Language Arts 3 class is collecting donations of scrap metal to recycle to raise money to buy an Enigma machine. The school is also collecting box tops for education and
This past week was a busy one for members of the Tri-County Conference Choir. Singers from 9th Tri-County Conference schools met and rehearsed last Sunday before going on a 3-school tour Monday. First stop of the day was at Green City with another performance at Novinger for their final concert of the day at Brashear Monday afternoon.
A large crowd turned out at Kirksville's North Park for the sectional matchup between Class 1 District 11 champions Brashear and Class 1 District 12 champions Brevier. Brashear was the visiting team on the scoreboard and went 1-2-3 on the top of the first, then Brevier went 1-2-3 at the bottom of the first. Both teams were scoreless in the second, although Brashear managed to get 3 runs aboard. The Lady Tigers struck for their first run in the top of the third as Meredith Thomas reached on an air with 2 outs and Ashley Moncrief singled her home. Brashear added 2 more runs in the fifth as Meredith Thomas led off with a single. Shelby Salter tipped and Sierra Hines singled to bring Salter home, putting Brashear up 3-0. Brashear added a 4th run in the 6th when Alexa Acton singled, Allie Garrett doubled, and Meredith Thomas brought Acton home with a single. Brevier finally got on the scoreboard in the bottom of the 6th. Brashear got their 5th run in the top of the 7th as Kristen Love hit a leadoff double, stole third, and came home on a passed ball. For Brashear, Meredith Thomas, Ashley Moncrief, Shelby Salter, Sierra Hines, Kristen Love, Alexa Acton, and Allie Garrett had hits. Sierra Hines took the loss for Brashear, striking out 8 while surrendering 8 hits.
The Brashear Junior High Lady Tigers kicked off their hoop season facing La Plata at the Green City Tournament. Brashear took a 4-2 lead after 1 quarter and led 9-6 at halftime. The third quarter was a dead heat with both teams scoring 6 as Brashear held on to win by a final margin of 20-16. Allison Thompson had 6 points for Brashear, Abby Kirby and Mandy Taylor had 4 each, and Skylar Hausman, Allie Garrett, and Kylie Williams had 2 points each. Brashear faced the host Lady Gophers of Green City in Friday night's championship game. The Lady Tigers held a slim 9-8 lead after 1 quarter, but extended that lead to 16-12 at halftime. Green City came back to tie the game at 24-all at the end of the 3rd quarter, but Brashear managed to outscore Green City 10-6 in the final quarter to win 34-30. Abby Kirby and Allison Thompson shared scoring honors for Brashear with 12 points each. Mandy Taylor had 6, and Skylar Hausman and Abby Hall scored 2 points each. The Brashear boys also faced La Plata for their first game. La Plata jumped out to a quick 18-3 lead after 1 quarter and led 26-7 going into halftime. La Plata extended the lead to 39-9 after 3 quarters and won the game 49-9. Jacob Reeves scored 6 points for Brashear, Brody Hendricks had 2, and Gabe Thomas scored 1 point. The Brashear boys met Novinger in the 3rd place game. Nobbinger led 7-6 at the end of the first quarter, but Brashear came storming back to take a 17-13 halftime lead. The third quarter was all Nobbinger as they outscored Brashear 10-0 and held on to win by a final margin of 30-24. For Brashear, Gabe Thomas scored 7 points, Chance Hill had 6, Jacob Reeves had 5, Brody Hendricks had 4, and Colt Atkins scored 2 points.
On October 17th, the Tigers played the Atlanta Hornets. In the girls' game, Brashear used an aggressive defense to jump out to a 10-4 first quarter lead and took an 18-9 lead into halftime. Brashear extended the lead 29-12 after 3 quarters and coasted to a win 37-20. Allison Thompson scored 10 points for Brashear. Mandy Taylor added 8, Skylar Hausman had 6, Abby Hall had 5, and Abby Kirby, Sydney Seiss, Kaylee Hall, and Sadie Potter scored 2 points each. In the boys' game, the Atlanta boys came out with a quick lead in the first quarter, 19-0. Brashear finally got on the board in the second quarter, but Atlanta led 31-9 by halftime. Atlanta continued to extend their lead in the third, pulling out to a 49-15 lead before winning 55-20. Chance Hill scored 9 points for Brashear, Brody Hendricks had 6, and Colt Atkins had 5 points. Atlanta took the B quarters 30-4.
On October 18th, Brashear had a doubleheader in the Plata. The Plata took an 8-3 lead after the first quarter of play in the girls' game, but Brashear came back to pull within one at 15-4 at halftime. The game was close, but with the Plata leading 23-21 after 3 quarters, but La Plata outscored Brashear 14-8 in the final quarters to win 37-28. Mandy Taylor scored 10 points for Brashear. Abby Hall had 5. Abby Kirby had 4. Allie Garrett and Kylie Williams had 3 each. And Skylar Hausman and Allison Thompson had scored. And in the boys' game, the first quarter was close, with La Plata leading 11-9. The second quarter, La Plata outscored Brashear 18-6 to take a 29-15 lead to the locker room. The second half was a wash, with Brashear scoring 17 and La Plata scoring 19 to hold for a 48-32 win. Colt Atkins scored 13 points. Jacob Reeves had 6. Gabe Thomas, Brody Hines, and Chance Hill each had 4. And Marshall Goff scored 1 point.
Last Thursday, the Adair County Red Cross had a public blood drive sponsored by the Brashear High School. There were 31 people that donated blood. There were 27 usable units acquired and 1 first-time donor.
This week, elementary kids got to play in Tiny Tigers basketball. They practiced all throughout the week and played their games on Saturday. It was sponsored by After Prom, and they raised over $700.
This past Wednesday, the FBLA kids went to John Wood Community College to visit the campus.
The traditional Red Ribbon Week began this week. Each year, students participate in several activities to show that they are drug-free. NHS members pass out candy to all students who show their drug-free spirit.
Friday night, the Brashear Tigers hosted the Green City Gopher JH basketball teams. In the girls' game, Brashear jumped out to a 13-5 lead after 1 quarter and continued to outscore Green City every quarter of the game to claim a 33-9 victory. For Brashear, Abby Kirby, Abby Hall, Allison Thompson, and Kaylee Hall scored 6 points each. Skylar Hausman had 5, and Aaron Bradshaw and Kylie Williams scored 2 points each. The Green City boys jumped out to a 6-5 lead after 1 quarter, but Brashear closed the gap to 22-12 at halftime. It was all Green City in the second half as they led 42-22 after 3 quarters and won by a score of 54-28. For Brashear, Gabe Thomas and Jacob Reeves both scored 6. Chance Hill scored 5. Colt Atkins scored 4. Patrick Johnson scored 3. And Tyler Finley and Marshall Goff both scored 2.
On October 24th, the Brashear Lady Tigers played against Mary Immaculate. The Lady Tigers outscored Mary Immaculate 10-2 in the first quarter, then kept pouring it on, extending their lead to 23-2 by halftime, 38-2 after 3 quarters, and finally cruising to a 47-5 win. Kaylee Hall scored 14 points for Brashear, Zadie Potter added 8, Casey Mihalovich had 7, Abby Kirby had 6, Sydney Sykes had 4, Courtney Arnold had 3, Aaron Bradshaw and Kylie Williams had 2 each, and Michaela Potter scored 1 point.
In the boys' game, Mary Immaculate jumped out to a 15-4 first quarter lead and led 18-9 going into halftime. Brashear closed to within 5 during the third quarter, but Mary Immaculate led 24-15 at the end of the third. Brashear rallied again in the fourth, pulling to within 6, but could not close the gap, and Mary Immaculate held on for a 31-23 win. Brody Hendricks scored 12 points for Brashear, Patrick Jochimson and Colt Acton had 4 each, and Tyler Watson scored 3 points.
The Brashear and Bevere girls played to a 6-6 tie after 1 quarter, but Brashear outscored the Lady Wildcats 12-2 during the second quarter to take an 18-8 lead into halftime. The Lady Tigers extended their lead to 30-13 after 3 quarters and won by a score of 34-13. Allison Thompson scored 8 points for Brashear. Abby Hall had 7. Mandy Taylor had 5. Casey Mihalovich and Abby Kirby had 4 each. Kaylee Hall had 3. Sadie Potter had 2. And Skylar Hausman scored 1 point. Bevere jumped out to a 13-6 first quarter lead in the boys' game, and they led 28-15 at halftime. Brashear outscored Bevere 9-5 in the final quarter, but it was a little too late at Bevere won by a score of 49-28. Colt Acton scored 9 points for Brashear. Jacob Reeves had 7. Gabe Thomas had 6. Chance Hill had 4, and Brody Hendricks had 2 points.
Last week on Friday, we ended Red Ribbon Week with an assembly. During the assembly, they had multiple student council and NHS students representing people who died in alcohol-related car crashes, telling us that it doesn't matter who you are, for it could be anyone who ends up in a drug-caused car crash.
The Brashear Lady Tigers played Buckland Friday night and struggled to score in the first quarter, with Buckland holding a slim 8-6 lead. But Buckland caught fire during the second quarter and took a 23-25 lead in the halftime. Brashear rallied in the second half, pulling to within 6 points in the fourth quarter, and Buckland ended up winning 37-24. Abby Kirby and Mandy Taylor scored 6 points each for Brashear. Skylar Hausman and Allison Thompson had 4 each, and Sydney Sykes and Abby Hall scored 2 points each. In the boys' game, Buckland took a first quarter lead of 9-4 and led 19-8 at halftime. Buckland continued to pull away in the second half and picked up the win by a score of 56-29. Colt Acton and Gabe Thomas scored 7 points each for Brashear. Chance Hill added 6, Brody Hendricks had 3, and Marshall Goff, Tristan Boren, and Jacob Reeves scored 2 points each.
The Brashear Lady Tigers played Novinger Tuesday. In the first quarter, Brashear led a 5-2 lead. Brashear started to heat up in the second quarter and led 20-8 at half. Brashear continued to pull away in the second half, leading 28-13 after 3 quarters on their way to a 40-21 win. Allison Thompson scored 10 points for Brashear. Abby Kirby had 8, Mandy Taylor had 7, Sydney Sykes and Sadie Potter had 4 each, Kaylee Hall had 3, and Casey Mihalovich and Abby Hall had 2 points each. In the boys' game, Novinger took a 4-point lead, but Brashear answered, and the two teams traded scores for a big part of the first half until Novinger pulled away to a 23-15 lead at halftime. Novinger continued to extend their lead in the second half, winning by a final margin of 47-28. Jacob Reeves led Brashear, scoring with 11 points. Marshall Goff and Brody Hendricks had 4 each, and Patrick Johnson, Gabe Thomas, and Chance Hill scored 3 points each.
This week, the varsity boys and girls started practice. The girls have 10 going out for the team, and the boys have 11.
On Thursday night, the Lady Mustangs and the Lady Tigers squared off for a hard-fought game. Lincoln County held a slim 8-6 lead after one quarter, but pulled away to an 18-12 lead at halftime. After falling behind by 10 points after the half, the Lady Tigers rallied to pull within 3 midway through the fourth quarter. However, a quick bucket and a series of made free throws iced the 37-26 win for Lincoln County. Kaylee Hall scored 10 points for Brashear. Allison Thompson had 7. Mandy Taylor had 6. Skylar Hausman had 2. And Allie Garrett scored 1 point. In the boys' game, Colt Acton got Brashear on the scoreboard first with a 3-pointer. But Lincoln County led 10-9 after one quarter and 18-3 at halftime. The second half was all Lincoln County as they outscored Brashear 17-5 in the third quarter on their way to a 42-24 win. Chance Hill scored 10 points for Brashear. Gabe Thomas added 6. Colt Acton and Jacob Reeves had 3 each, and Brody Hendricks scored 2 points.
In the first girls' game, Brashear played Green City and jumped out to a 14-7 first quarter lead and led 21-11 at halftime. Brashear extended their lead to 30-17 after 3 quarters and won their first round game 36-26. Allison Thompson and Mandy Taylor scored 8 points each for Brashear. Abby Kirby and Sydney Sykes had 5. Skylar Hausman and Abby Hall had 4. And Allie Garrett scored 2 points for Brashear. The second game of the evening featured the Brashear and Green City boys. Green City pressured their way to a 14-8 lead after one quarter, then turned up the heat and extended their lead to 31-10 at halftime. The second half was more of the same, with Green City pulling away for 56-21 win. Gabe Thomas and Colt Acton each had 6 points for Brashear. Brody Hendricks had 4. Tristan Bourne and Jacob Briggs had 2 points each, and Chance Hill scored 1 point.
Brashear and La Plata girls had a split in their 2 previous meetings this season. It was apparent early on that the fans would have to stay for the whole game to see who would win. As the teams played a seesaw game, there was neither team could gain a lead of more than 3 points. La Plata held an 8-6 lead after the first quarter, a 14-13 lead after halftime, and a 18-15 lead after 30 quarters. The game was decided in the final 2 minutes as Brashear pulled ahead by 4 at the 2-minute mark, then stretched the lead to 8 for a 28-20 win. Allison Thompson scored 11 for Brashear. Mandy Taylor added 8. Skylar Hausman added 3, and Abby Kirby, Sydney Sykes, and Abby Hall scored 2 points each. The Brashear and Brevier boys battled to a 14-14 tie after one quarter of play, but Brevier reeled off 14 unanswered points to the start of the second quarter. Brashear finally answered with 6, but Brevier led 28-20 at halftime. The second half saw Brevier continue to increase their lead as they won by a score of 53-34. Jacob Reeves led Brashear scoring with 19 points. Brody Hendricks had 5. Gabe Thomas and Chance Hill had 4 each. And Tristan Bourne scored 2 points. Hello, today is November 18th. I'm Gus.
And I'm Dakota. Welcome to BHS News.
Last week, elementary students participated in various events to encourage reading. During Reading Week, the students earned carnival tickets for the time that they read. The kids were then able to use the tickets at Monday night's carnival hosted by teachers and NHS members. While at the carnival, kids were able to buy food with their tickets, bob for apples, get their face painted, or take silly photos.
On Tuesday, the elementary students were treated to a puppet show. The students learned about food groups and healthy eating during the show. The puppet show was arranged by Joe Lane, a nutrition program assistant with the University of Missouri Extension Service. Ms. Lane visits our elementary to help students learn about nutrition.
The Brashear girls and Buckland girls faced off Saturday night for the Atlanta Tournament Championship. The Buckland girls had won the regular season game 37-24 and were undefeated on the season. As the game got underway, it soon became apparent that it was going to be a rough and tumble affair, with both teams committing a lot of fouls early on. Both teams were in bonus before halftime. Brashear got on the scoreboard first and held an 8-6 lead after one quarter and a 14-9 lead at halftime. Buckland came out, charged up after the half, and took a 23-17 lead by the end of the third quarter. With foul totals climbing at an alarming rate, it became obvious that free throws would play a key role in the outcome. The charity stripe wasn't particularly kind to either team, but Brashear hit enough down the stretch with a few key buckets to rally for a 28-27 upset win. Manny Taylor scored 10 points for Brashear, Allison Thompson had 6, Kaylee Hall had 4, Sydney Sykes and Abby Hall had 3 each, and Abby Kirby scored 2 points.
On Tuesday, November 15th, Brashear Junior High girls faced Mary Immaculate for the last game of their season. The Brashear Tigers scored the first 15 points of the game and never looked back, taking a 31-4 lead at halftime, holding Mary Immaculate scoreless in the second half for a 55-4 win. Kylie Williams, Mandy Taylor each had scored 10 points for Brashear. Kaylee Hall had 9, Casey Mihaljevic and Sadie Potter scored 8 each, Courtney Arnold had 6, and Skylar Hausman and Aaron Bradshaw scored 2 each.
The boys' game also started out with Brashear jumping out to an early lead of 11-2 after the first quarter and led 19-7 at halftime. Mary Immaculate made runs in the second half but couldn't close the gap, and Brashear held on for a 33-23 win. Brody Hendricks scored 12 points for Brashear. Patrick Josherman scored 8. Marshall Goff had 6. Colt Acton had 3. Jacob Blything and Tristan Bourne had 2 points each.
On Monday, the entire school gathered to show their support for the high school girls and boys basketball teams with a pep rally. The cheerleaders led the school in cheer, and the senior Tigers gave their speeches to encourage everyone to come watch and support their first game of the season.
On Monday, November 28th, Brashear kicked off the varsity season against top-seeded Scotland County in the Novinger tournament. Early on, the game looked nothing like a usually 1-seed, 8-seed matchup as Brashear led 9-8 late in the first quarter. Scotland County retook the lead and built a 27-16 margin at halftime. Brashear couldn't close the gap in the second half but was still within 12 a couple of minutes into the fourth quarter before Scotland County pulled away for a 54-31 win. For Brashear, Hayden Hausman led all scorers with 22 points. Joe Clarkson added 6, Taryn Treasure had 2, and Joseph Woods scored 1 point.
On Wednesday, November 29th, the Brashear Tigers played Milan Wildcats at Novinger. In the first quarter, Milan took the lead of 23-12, then slowly started pulling ahead by a lead of 37-17 by the half. Milan put on the heat, increasing to a 59-34 lead going into the fourth, and Milan ended the game with a 71-42 final score. Joe Clarkson scored 18 points, Hayden Hausman scored 12, Taryn Treasure scored 8 points, and TJ Harrelson scored 4.
Tuesday. Both teams struggled in the first quarter, but La Plata's press finally provided some scoring, giving them a 7-2 lead after one quarter of play. La Plata continued to outscore Brashear in the second quarter, extending their lead to 20-12 at the halftime. The second half was all La Plata as they outscored Brashear in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter to claim a 44-22 victory. Shelby Salter scored 11 points for Brashear, Allison Thompson had 4, Meredith Thomas and Shannon March had 3 points each, and Olivia Thompson scored 1 point.
The Brashear girls face Atlanta in the consolation semifinals Thursday, December 1st. Brashear scored the first 5 points, but Atlanta quickly answered to knot the game 5-5. From that point on, neither team could take or hold any kind of substantial lead. Brashear was ahead 9-8 after one quarter, 29-19 after the half, and 29-28 after 3 quarters of play. During the fourth quarter, Brashear managed to build a 9-point lead, but once again, Atlanta battled back and had the last possession of the game, trailing by only 3 points. Atlanta failed to convert, and Brashear hung on for the 39-36 win. Shelby Salter scored 11 points for Brashear. Miranda Creason and Meredith Thomas had 9 points each. Allison Thompson had 4, and Olivia Thompson, Alexa Acton, and Shandy March scored 2 points each.
The Brashear girls and Green City girls squared off in the consolation game in the Navajo tournament Friday night. The two teams played a competitive first quarter with Green City holding a 14-12 lead. Green City exploded for 20 points in the second quarter to give them a 34-17 lead going into halftime. Brashear rallied in the third, trailing 42-31, but Green City held on to win the consolation game 51-38. Olivia Thompson had 8 points for Brashear, Katie Smith added 6, Miranda Creason had 5, Ashley Moncrief, Meredith Thomas, and Shandy March scored 4 points each. Shelby Salter, Nikki Moncrief, and Allison Thompson had 2 points, and Katie Sweet scored 1 point for Brashear.
On Friday, the boys' 7th place game featured Brashear and Bevere. Bevere used a stifling press and some red-hot perimeter shooting to build a 43-31 lead at halftime. Brashear started to chip away at the Bevere lead in the second half, but still trailed 53-44 after 3 quarters of play. In the final minute, Brashear used a Hayden Hausman three-pointer, a Taryn three-pointer, and a Joe Clarkson two-pointer to close within 1 point, but Bevere held on for a 63-61 win. Brashear's Hayden Hausman scored 22 points, Taryn Treasure added 15, Joe Clarkson had 14, TJ Harlson had 6, and Joseph Woods and Jacob Reeves scored 2 points each.
The Brashear Tigers traveled to Lynn County Tuesday night for a Tri-County Conference basketball doubleheader. The Lady Mustangs took an early lead and were up 12-10 after 1 quarter of play. The margin had widened to 20-15 at halftime. Brashear trailed 31-21 after 3 quarters. During the final period, Brashear rallied but fell short by a score of 39-32. Shelby Salter scored 9 for Brashear. Olivia Thompson had 8. Ashley Moncrief had 6. Katie Smith added 4. Mara Thomas had 3, and Olivia Thompson added 2 points.
At the boys' game against Lynn County, the Mustangs got on the scoreboard early in a big way and never looked back. The Mustangs held a 20-6 lead after the first quarter and were up 33-13 at halftime. The second half was more of the same as Lynn County pulled away for 59-27 win. TJ Harlson and Taryn Treasure each scored 6 points for Brashear. Hayden Hausman added 5, Joseph Woods, Jacob Reeves, and Joe Clarkson had 3 points each, and Nick Bradshaw scored 1 point.
On Friday, members of the Brashear chapter of NHS traveled to the Twin Pines Nursing Home in Kirksville, Missouri to spread Christmas cheer to the residents there. After their Christmas project, the group enjoyed dinner at Colton's and then returned to school.
On Tuesday morning, Art Club members gathered in the art room to enjoy food and refreshments, along with discuss this year's Art Club field trip. Art Club is an open organization where any student 9th through 12th grade can join. There are a total of 48 members in Art Club this year.
Last Friday night, the Elementary Drama Club had their first play of the year, called Loveland and the Cowboy Prince.
Last Monday, the elementary Christmas concert was held at 7 o'clock along with the elementary classes. The concert, choir, and band participated as well. They brought it to an end with "We Wish You a Merry Christmas."
In the gym, you may have noticed new mats that have been installed. They were donated by the Brashear School District, the boys basketball team, and the Letterman Club. They were installed to address many safety issues.
On Tuesday, December 13th, the Brashear cheerleaders hosted a pink out game to raise money for 2 children from the area, Will Jacobs and Preston Fitz, who have cancer. There was a live auction where stained glass art, blankets, brick lights, and pies were sold. With the auction, raffle, eat shack, and t-shirt sales, they raised over $1,700 for the families. The cheerleaders would like to give a special thanks to all that came to support and make the event a success.
The Brashear Tigers hosted the La Plata Bulldogs Tuesday night in a Tri-County Conference game. In the first quarter, La Plata managed to take a 8-4 lead, which extended to 19-11 at half. Brashear outscored La Plata 9-3 in the third quarter to put the score at 22-0. The Lady Tigers stayed close throughout the final quarter, but could never quite close the gap, and La Plata held on for a 36-26 win. Meredith Thomas scored 9 points for Brashear. Miranda Creason and Katie Smith had 5 each. Shelby Salter had 3, and Olivia Thompson and Shani March scored 2 points each. Unlike the start of the girls' game, the boys had no problem getting on the scoreboard, but it was La Plata doing most of the damage as they ran up a 25-9 lead after one quarter and led 48-28 at halftime. The scoring continued in the second half with both team subs seeing most of the playing time. In the fourth quarter, as La Plata rolled to an 86-55 win. Payne Hausman scored 21 points for Brashear, Joseph Woods added 11, Taryn Treasure had 8, Tristan Smith had 6, TJ Harrelson had 4, Joe Clarkson had 3, and Marcus Jefferson had 2 points.